Hi everyone, I'm Katharine. I'm a developer. I may or may not work at Sky, that's not relevant. So thank you very much, Josh, for letting me speak. That may be a very good thing, and it may be a mistake. So to kick things off, I'm going to tell a story. So it was a dark and stormy night. We've been parachuted in, me and a few of the guys, to a project that had overrun by several months at this point, and the code was really nasty. I'll just do the clicking instead. Okay. That one. So one of the developers who was working on the project had gone rogue and didn't really care very much anymore, which is fine, but when you patch bugs with speculation, things tend to go very wrong, and you get bugs, and then you get bugs on bugs, and then the bugs turn into big monoliths that threaten to destroy you all. So here's a fictionalized example of some of our release logs. So things aren't really very good here, and it's all very speculative. And you know things are getting bad when you start aliasing. Especially when your aliases develop their own stories. And then you've just lost it. So if you're in a similar situation, just so you know for the future, the moral here is test your code. Our team was in crisis. Things had gone really wrong. There's bad communication, bad bugs, and a lot of bad feeling. So I started to wonder, if I could change one thing about the team, what would it be? Maybe you'd ban certain people from checking in. Maybe you'd fire your nemesis, stop certain people from talking or turning up to work. Or, not that I have bad feelings, maybe you're in a different situation and you're in meeting after meeting and nothing seems to be happening and nothing seems to be important, but you definitely have to keep having meetings. And you start to think like this. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and all just think for a few seconds about in your current team or a bad team you've been in, what you'd change. And now I'm going to ask you, please, to interact. So if you could put your hands up if there is something that you'd change in your team. Claire? And put your hands down if you're in charge of that team already. And then put your hands up if you change something. Come on, put your hands up. Come on. If you could take complete control and change things for what you think is the better, would you do it? There must be someone in this room, apart from Claire, who I'm bullying into this. Oh, thank you. Okay, so congratulations. You're a tyrant. So we all want to be in charge at various points, presumably. There's always one person in the team who needs to have less opinions in order for things to get done. And so what if everyone doesn't agree with you? You're probably right. Maybe being a tyrant isn't such a bad thing. You get your own Tumblr. Get rid of any pesky relatives. Need anything doing, like a kitchen extension, extra bedroom, or maybe a big statue of your head? And then the ultimate in bling, your own bodyguard. So, it doesn't always work like that, unfortunately. And it might not work in your team, and people might not agree to your conditions because not everybody likes to be under an authoritarian regime. So you might not be in charge, and you might not get to fire your nemesis. But what if you're in a bad team? So we've all been in one. No one turns up till midday, or no one turns up. No one knows how anything works. No one knows what they're meant to be working on. So I'm just going to give you a few examples. So what if you've got no goals? Sorry, Claire. So you've got no goals and no direction, and no one knows what's important, and you don't have a priority for work. So in terms of things I've experienced in the past, people working on things with no business value because no one knows what the business value is. So what can you do if you're not a tyrant, unfortunately? So rather than just going, these are the goals, you can talk about it with your team. And if you're not given any goals, get someone to push for them. And if that fails, just make some goals up. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. So, for example, if you've got an app, your goal could be the performance of the app, accuracy of reporting, not having any downtime. And then you can look at how you're measuring success. And if you can get something in to help you do that, and then increase success. Okay, so next, self-organization. So it would be nice if everyone came into work and didn't mess around making sculptures like I occasionally do with our inflatable dinosaur. And I'm sure you've all worked with someone who sits on Facebook all day. So my Scrum Master buddy, Karen, who sadly can't make it tonight, was going to go through an example where someone was on Facebook all the time and what you can do about that. And in that case, if you're a Scrum Master, I think you're in a really good position to actually just have a conversation with them privately about how it affects the team. In terms of the lowly developer, I think the best approach is not to get 1984 on them, and probably to try and bring it up in a subtle way in a retro, which, if you don't have in your teams, is a brilliant way of communicating in what is hopefully an objective way. So instead of going, get off Facebook, you could say, our motivation is down, what can we do about it? Or, I feel like we're not really focusing. So positivity. There's always someone on the team who complains all the time. Sometimes that's me. In terms of what to do, I guess make it a joke. Like, oh, stop whining, get over yourself. And if that fails, maybe everyone is negative for a reason, and you can use that reason to all band together. Feedback. So teams with no feedback. In my very first job, there was this rule, along with some other weird rules like don't touch the glass. Because apparently if you touched the glass, it made you a bad developer, because if you didn't have the self-control not to touch the glass, what was your code like? It was a bit weird. But one of the other rules was no feedback is good feedback. And what that made me like is I'd come home craving positive feedback about like how I opened a door or like what I made for dinner. I just couldn't cope with any kind of criticism. So don't get into that situation. Get feedback from anyone you can, because you can't know how good you are at your job without feedback. So what about surprises? So in the example I gave you with the release logs, there was almost nothing we could have done about the situation. It was just awful. And in that case, you can't really do anything apart from deal with the surprise. So in that case, everything was wrong. So when you're checking in code that may or may not work, when you've got bugs that have evolved to the point that they're threatening to turn into a sentient being, and your team isn't communicating and you've got no standards, maybe it's time for a plan. So Karen's advice, who's sadly not here, is to break things down into steps. So first of all, results. So if you don't know what you're measuring, you can't measure your results. If you've got no idea what the result is, you probably don't have any idea what you're doing. And that ties into identifying success. So if you can just come up with what your team needs to do to achieve things, then you're part of the way there. Behaviors could mean the way you're interacting with your other team members, or it could be behavior of people external to the team. But if you can look, and again, this is where retrospectives are really good, where you all meet and you talk about what went well and what didn't go well. They're brilliant ways to discuss behaviors in a way that isn't, hopefully, threatening or uncomfortable. Questions are great. you've got questions, you've got transparency, and I think you should always question what you're doing anyway to make sure that you're not wasting your time, because I don't know what everyone else feels like, but in my opinion, the best kind of code is code that you don't have to write. So, teamwork. So different types of teamwork work for different teams, so that you might have a team where you enforce pairing, and that might be horrible, and it should never happen. And dealing with different points of view. So conflict or just different perspectives. And then hopefully you have your amazing golden team. So what if you're not in charge? The secret is be the tyrant anyway. Try not to let anyone know. I'm sure there's a way of being subtle about it where it doesn't look like you're doing a hostile takeover. So the best example I've got is my current Scrum Master, who I'm sure will be annoyed at me for name-dropping him. He manages to get us all to agree to everything, and then it's our fault because we agreed to it, and we have to do it. So get people in your side and just do it anyway. And then, if all else fails, sometimes it's time to quit your job. The end.